And we are live. Hello, hello. Hey, guys, and welcome to another episode of Inglês Nu E Cru Rádio, Quarantine Edition. Today, we are not here with Alexia. We are here with Felipe Arcaro. How do you say your last name?
It depends where you're from, but I say Arcaro.
And I think it is very obvious from your pronunciation that you are from São Paulo. Cool. So for those of you who do not know or are not familiar, Felipe is our employee. He works with me and Alexia. He does all of the technical things with Inglês Nu E Cru and much more. So welcome, Felipe. Welcome to the show for the first time.
Thanks. I've been trying to postpone it for a long time, but now there's no way out. I'm here.
As you can tell in the excitement in Felipe's voice, he is a natural born extrovert. He loves the camera. So, Felipe, I wanted to have you on for a lot of reasons. In general, I've wanted to do this for a long time, but more specifically, I think now is a perfect time because we are quarantined. So this is what we do. We spend a lot of time just on video calls, and you also have a lot of experience with working remotely and with online education. So I wanted to talk to you about that stuff. Is that cool?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. Don't talk too much, Felipe. Okay, so Felipe, can you tell us about what your experience has been with working remotely? Because I know you started working remotely with me and Alexia almost a year ago. Yeah.
Yeah. We started in July, I believe. June or July.
Yeah. So almost a year. And just so everyone understands what we say when we say working remotely, Felipe and I have never met in person. It's weird. I feel like I talk to you and know you better than most people in my life right now.
Yeah.
And we've never met in real life. So tell me, Felipe, how has that process been for you so far? How was it at the beginning? How has it changed? Just what are some of your general impressions so far?
Okay. I want to say that I started this before I met you guys. So originally I started teaching online in 2017, I believe. And to be honest, I kind of romanticized it a little bit back then because I thought, okay, so I can work anywhere, I can travel and work. But when it started to get serious, especially with you guys, that I actually have stuff to do and it's not like one class here and there, I realized that even though it's remote, I really, really need a place to work. And by a place, I mean like a place that I can call my office. So if I'm moving around, that doesn't work. I feel like I'm not as productive as I want to be.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's a lesson that takes a long time for a lot of people to learn. So you said when you started with teaching classes. You were teaching Portuguese classes, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. And how was that experience?
I like it very much. At first I was teaching Portuguese and English, but over the years, English students, I don't know what happened, but primarily all my Portuguese students, they wanted to keep going even though I had a job. So that's why I kept them. So I started in 2017 and then I got a job again back in corporate. And these students, they wanted to keep going. And since there wasn't a lot of classes, like 2 or 3 per week, I said, yeah, I can keep doing it. And I think it's so fun because they are in Australia, they are in Germany, in the United States, and we get to talk about very interesting things. So it's very chill, and I love my students.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's something I always recommend because obviously I taught private online lessons for years and years, that if you are new to working remotely or if you just kind of want to test the waters and see if it's a good fit for you, teaching is a great option. Like, if I'm not mistaken, you were not a professional teacher before, right?
Yeah, exactly. No, it was not. It was just,
You just started talking to people and they
yeah,
paid you money.
yeah, exactly. And I made it very clear. It was like I can learn. So for example, I think it's worse in Portuguese because in English we had to learn all the grammar and all the boring stuff, so it could help, especially beginners. But when it comes to Portuguese, it's weird because I just know and I don't know how to explain. But now I kind of know weird stuff like grammar and some verb tenses, and it's just weird, you know? I had to learn and I like it.
Yeah. Teaching your own language is the best way to learn about your own language, for sure. So, Felipe, you said in the beginning you kind of romanticized this ideal of working remotely, like you're traveling through South America, you're going to kind of live this nomadic life.
Yeah.
I feel like most people have that idea of like what we do. And the reality of it is you and I are just sitting in rooms in different parts of the world. And it's not that romantic. Why do you think people have that idea? And what would you tell people that have that idea?
Well, I think I'm going to say we because I had that idea. We have that idea, especially because of YouTube. I think people, I mean, that's how they make money. They make it look good. So you watch their videos and you build that expectation. But especially because when you're doing the completely opposite, so you're working in corporate instead of an office, that's what you see. You see the completely opposite. You're staying inside of a building, I don't know, 8, 10, 12 hours a day. So I think it's automatic to think that, well, if I live this life, I'll have 8, 10, or 12 hours a day outside, which is super good. But me and most of the people I talk to, we didn't really think all the way through before we left the office to work anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, I certainly did not. Yeah, it's kind of selling you the dream. Like, I remember when I was finishing university and finishing business school, a lot of companies and corporate positions, they're selling you this idea of like having a powerful job and being with important people. And you never think about just the hours and hours sitting in front of a computer and looking at spreadsheets. But
Yeah.
it's kind of the same thing with working remotely. Like, we sell you the idea of traveling and flexible schedules, but we don't, it's just not interesting to see someone staring at their computer all day.
Yeah, but I also believe it's different because first, when I was inside of an office, I felt like I had the show was working. So some days you just don't have stuff to do, you know, either because you're waiting on someone or because you've done everything you were supposed to do in that day. So it was like, oh, if I leave, people are they're gonna think bad of me, you know, they're gonna look down on me. And here it's different. And I know even when you work remotely, first you realize that you can do everything you used to do in 8 hours, you can do in 4. And at first you're like, oh, like, am I lying or is it like how it's supposed to be? So you start being a little bit more productive and working less, which is great, right? But it takes some time until you realize that, okay, so if nobody's bothering me, nobody's sending me email or trying to talk to me while I'm working, I can do this so much faster, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And because I know you personally and I know your personality type, I think this is one of the most difficult things that we can just dive into. And I don't know how many people will relate to this, but something that a lot of people do not talk about, which I personally think is the hardest thing about remote work, is how to know when to stop working and how to kind of create a barrier between your work life and just life. And I'm not talking about like work-life balance,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot of times for me, and I imagine you have something similar, I don't know if I'm working or I'm not working. I don't know what I'm doing. It's just my life. And that can be kind of exhausting sometimes.
Yeah. So when we first started, I remember telling you, so how are we gonna see if I'm working? Like, how are we gonna keep track of it? And you said, I don't know, it's up to you. And then instantly I downloaded an app and I've been using it so I can track when I'm working. But exactly, I sometimes I don't even know if that's work or I'm just doing research or I'm learning. So what I try to do is basically, since I have this flexibility, I try to have some, it's not to do's, but it's more like, okay, so I have to exercise, I have to talk to a friend, or I have to socialize, and this has to be inside of my day. So with that flexibility, sometimes I try to do it in different ways. So sometimes I try to wake up, go for a run, and then come back and start working. And then, oh, okay, that doesn't work because I don't feel good throughout my day. So in a different day, I try to do it differently. So at 5 or at 6, I say, no, I'm done with work and now I'm going to go for a run. And I think that's how I try to balance everything. But I can't tell if it's working because
Yeah. That's one of the big benefits is you can experiment a lot with your schedule, but it's also one of the difficult things is you have to decide on your own schedule and you never know if it's the right one. Cool. So you talked about routines and going on a run and creating time for social activities. Do you have any tips for people that perhaps are working remotely for the first time and like how to maintain some sort of like normal life happiness structure?
Yeah, I think that's like remote work 101. So basically, don't work from your bed. That's just like, just don't do it. And I think,
That's serious.
yeah.
I did that for years, literally.
And I think if I have to pick three things I've learned is one, try to have a place to work. So either a room or just go to a co-working. Yeah, you can't really do it right now, but I think it's good to have some social part, some social aspect. So have a place to work. Try to take breaks because this is really hard. You know, I remember back in when I was inside of an office, I didn't feel guilty because so my friends, they're going to have a coffee or they're going to have a 2 hour lunch break. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do that too. And when you're working alone, you normally don't have that. So try to have breaks. And forget social media. I mean, I don't think this is a big problem for both of us, but when you were home, you know, you don't have to hide your screen and Facebook is right there or Instagram. So I would definitely forget about that. And I wouldn't add WhatsApp because WhatsApp sometimes we're used to work. So that's tricky. That's a gray area.
Yeah. Yeah. So the remote working 101 coming from Felipe, don't work from your bed, delete social media. And the other one was create breaks or make sure that you have time for social interaction. Yeah, I agree with all of those. All three of those, I would say easier said than done. Don't work from your bed. It seems really obvious, but a lot of times I don't do this nowadays, but in the past, like I would work from an office or from a dedicated space in my house. And then at the end of the day, if I was doing something like editing podcasts, maybe I would do that from my bed. And then I started just having terrible insomnia all of the time. So seriously, don't do that. I think it makes sense that both of us are a little bit crazy about not being on social media. And I think a lot of people don't understand why I'm like that. But when you put it in the context of remote work, I think it makes sense. Like, I don't like Instagram, but I recently had Instagram on my phone to download some stuff for Inglês Nu E Cru. And just every time I looked at my phone, I was looking through Instagram. And I was like, what am I doing? I'm supposed to be working.